Let's talk about the state of America today.
I thought you wanted to have a good conversation.
Yeah. You've talked about how divided the country is. How did that become? How does that get fixed?
I would say that right now, America is as divided pretty much as it was probably going into our Civil War. There's two distinct beliefs. Not only has the middle class evaporated in America, but the middle ground has evaporated. And the compounding to that problem, Warwick, is both parties, who really basically can no longer work together to make any real legitimate legislation, are having a splintering within their parties.
Yeah.
Of this one going more left and this one going more right. There's 5 key issues, and I'll just name them. The first is the biggest. It's our deficits, both debt and deficits. We're going to get to a point now, probably within just a couple of years, we're going to have major issues paying our interest. Forget about the 34, 35 trillion. The second big problem we have in America is a retirement and an aging issue. First of all, 65% of Americans are working paycheck to paycheck. Those beautiful commercials they see about those firms telling them to retire, play golf the rest of your life, just not going to happen for those people. And they're going to be more dependent on government to help them as well. The aging crisis is a little bit different. Right now, most of the bulk of the money is with the boomers. I'm a boomer. But guess what? Boomers aren't going to be here all day. We're going to start to pass along. And as we shift and that money shifts to younger, politicians will shift. Politicians go where the money is.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's going to come an aging crisis where we may be put against young versus old. The third is the immigration. Now, I'm not here to judge or talk about the terrorism part, but I do know when you add 10 or 20 million people, and some think it's more, and they basically, most of them came with their shirts on their backs, that is going to be a strain on economics for quite a while. And it's not something you can turn around and fix tomorrow. The fourth is something that Wall Street's really blown, Warwick. I think they do not understand, and by the time they learn it in their clients, it's going to be too late. And that's the formation of the BRIC nations.
Yeah.
Countries forming to trade among themselves, trade away from the United States, and eventually not use the United States in any system, including their own currency. And I think we're going to see later this fall how fast they've grown and how important that's going to come. And America's not prepared for it. And then the fifth problem, which we kind of touched on already, which you hope could fix that and the other problems with crime and all, we don't have the political structure to sit down and make the hard decisions and do it. And if it is to be fixed, it's going to take a generation or more. It took a generation or more to get here.
Yeah.
And it's going to take at least that long to fix it or get back to a more livable way. And I think it actually has to get worse before it can get better.
Let me ask this, and it may be a simplistic suggestion, but one of the things that has always struck me about the US system is the two-party system. And to me, if there was a viable third party, a truly viable third party that could win, it would remove, at least in concept, some of the strife. And I'll explain why. So in Canada, if somebody says to me, well, I vote Conservative, or I vote NDP, or I vote Liberal, or, I may not necessarily agree with them, but it's not black and white. If I say to you, I'm a Democrat, and you say, well, I'm a Republican, you think, well, he's an idiot, because there's only one right way. Would a viable third party help?
Well, we have people who register as independents, and they've become more of a role in deciding elections.
Sure.
And they're going to play a key role in this upcoming presidential election as well. I think that it's a bigger issue, and I think, if, at least for our forefathers, when this country was formed, the politician that was supposed to go to Washington was only supposed to go for a short time, and he or she was supposed to go just to represent what we think. It's become a way of life, and it's become a very lucrative way of life. So term limits would do a lot better, even if there was just two parties. So people go there willing to take action, not worried about their next election. Listen, in Congress, you fight, you get elected, in 9 months, you're already starting your campaign for the next, because there's only 2 terms. I think 1/6 or type year term, I think a different type of person would go to Washington and probably be more representative of what needs to be and not be a politician. But like I said, I think we're going to have to go through something much worse before something like that could actually evolve.
Eric Saderholm's great on this. Eric, for those who don't know, works with me at American Pacific, and he has 2 analogies. One, anybody in politics isn't on the A team, the B team, the C team, or the D team. They're somewhere way down the alphabet, which I tend to agree with. And the other thing that he says that I think makes a lot of sense is the bulk of Americans, to use a football analogy, live within the 40-yard lines. They're not hard left, they're not hard right, but it seems the parties want to go right to the edges, whereas most people are here. You know, I'm pretty centrist, but I can lean right on some things, I can lean left on others. I mean, and again, if parties were looking at it that way, at that point, you're trying to do what's right for your citizens, rather than I'm only ever going to vote right, I'm only ever going to vote left.
So the guy that started me in business sat me down, I think the 2nd or 3rd day. He said, Peter, I'm only going to give you this advice, and if you follow it, you'll make it in the business. Don't talk about politics, religion, and other men's wives. That was his line.
That's pretty good.
And
yeah.
I violated the politics and religion because I wear my religion on my sleeve, and it causes me a lot of heartache at times. But Wall Street does avoid blindness, but even now we're watching Wall Street titans start to talk about the deficits in a big way, the politics and also, but it's going to take really a lot worse, I think, before people just say enough is enough.
Yeah. In your estimation, how much does outside influence, outside of America, influence the political system here? There's a great show on Netflix called The Great Hack, which was about Cambridge Analytica. Basically, they were running these social media and other type campaigns over the internet all around the world, where they were swaying elections. And I watched it and was fascinated. I wondered about your thoughts on that here today.
Well, I don't think you can go by without thinking that there's influence from outside the United States. Not when basically a country that's rivaling you for potentially to be the biggest economic or even military power in the world, China. It would be foolish to think that there's not influence coming from them. I think the one thing we learned in the pandemic is that globalization might have helped for a while and it lowered prices and all, but we also found out suddenly when we were told we couldn't even step out our doors, and I know what happened in Canada and all, and we found that most of the products that we need for our day-to-day lives weren't even made under our own control and all. So deglobalization is clearly underway, and I think the world is breaking up into these trading pacts, as you're seeing and all, and I think the party that's outside looking in is going to be the United States.
Yeah.
So I think geopolitics, if you don't take it into your consideration and how you're looking out for the next 10 or 20 years as an American, and Canada. Yeah. Listen, Canada is, I don't know if you know this, I wrote a newsletter called North of the Border, which was focused on Canada, because Canada and the United States were the 2 biggest trading partners. And in fairness, even though the movie Canadian Bacon can show the differences, it's probably the 2 closest countries that live similar. Like, it's hard pressed when I was in Vancouver, Toronto, to know that I didn't leave the internet. Yeah. There might be chemists where, say, farmers, but basically a lot of it's the same. And it's seeing that too. It spent a lot of time looking elsewhere and forgot about themselves, and especially on the mineral side of things and all. So, unfortunately, the world will be driven up in packs, and there's never been in history where somebody stayed the world leader forever. And so I think we're at the cusp of that change.
I mean, as a Canadian who does all his business down in the U.S. and spends the bulk of his time in terms of going on holidays and what have you down in the U.S., I mean, we look at, I can't speak for all of Canada, but the bulk of us look at the U.S. as a sister country, right? So you want them both to be in strong, powerful places.